The Speaker recognizes Representative Barnett.
Boy, I love following Representative Kurtz. This was probably the hardest speech I've ever had to write while I was here. It's not on a par with the elusive Northern Cougar, but it seems like yesterday that we in the senior class gathered for policy lessons and met each other for the first time. It's been a quick 6 years, and in January a new class will arrive to take our places. But before I leave, I need to thank a few people. Chief Sergeant Dixon, I'll never forget how you and your team came to my rescue when I was surrounded and threatened in the hallway by an unruly mob of physicians. Really, physicians. To the clerks and staff, you have been remarkable, knowledgeable, and always ready to grab me when my leadership asked me to fling myself across your dais. To the Dem policy and staff groups, you're the best, and don't ever forget it. You're not paid nearly enough for the great work you do. To Michael, Colin, and my former staffers Kyle, Amanda, Laura, and Samantha, ditto. To my floor husband, Wayne Schmidt, despite the fact that our relationship was severely strained during that right-to-work mess, I will miss you more than you know. And as for me, I'm probably the only one here who has actually served in the minority for all 3 terms. I say that a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's actually the way it seemed to me at the time. It all started in early February 2009 when an AT&T bill came to the floor, and it was bad for local governments. I called the majority floor leader and got her permission to amend the bill. She talked it over with the bill's sponsor, Jeff Mays, and he assured her my amendment would fail when brought to the floor for a vote. So she agreed to run my amendment with a floor vote, as I requested. When the voting board quickly began to turn green, floor leader Angerer became quite angry. A few months later, another AT&T bill came to the floor, and she opened the board while the Republicans were in caucus. Representative Jennifer Haas and I, being strong supporters and believers in the bipartisan freshman caucus, thought it best and convinced our colleagues who were freshmen to stay off the board till the Republicans returned to the chamber to vote. Yep, got in trouble for that one too. And for the remainder of my first term, I was constantly called into the floor leader's office for one thing or another. In fact, in her farewell speech, which is probably printed in the journal, you will see that she ended with, "And then there's Rep. Barnett, who reminds me daily that 66 was enough." Our caucus had 67. Things didn't get much better at the start of the next term when I went to bat for both Democratic and Republican Metro Detroit representatives who were getting ridiculed by the press for taking 2 snow days off in a storm that never materialized. I didn't even say the V word, and I was banned for speaking on the floor for a week. If I had only been a Twitter user then. And yet, I love this job. I am so blessed to have been elected to serve my allotted 3 terms. I never get tired of entering this building and am truly in awe of the responsibilities we carry on our shoulders when we deliberate on behalf of the citizens of Michigan. That is, when we deliberate. And we don't do enough of that, you know. Since term limits were passed over 2 decades ago, the institutions we regard as the foundations of our democracy are degrading. It used to be that members were assigned to committees based on their expertise and their interests, not at the direction of lobbyists and corporations. For example, in my case, I spent years working on telecommunications, interoperable public safety radio systems, cable franchises, broadband issues, and federal spectrum management. I even continued working with the Department of Homeland Security on Codex review up through 2012. In 1988, I worked with State Senator Jack Faxon on the Michigan telephone bills, and in 1996 with members of Congress on the Telecommunications Act. I leave you with these 2 stories, not because it's about me, but as you saw from the beginning stories, you now know why I never served on energy and tech. This is about citizen legislators sharing their expertise for the betterment of our state. In this age of term limits, it's more important than ever for us to leverage the skills and knowledge of our colleagues. Prior to term limits, legislators could serve for years on the same committees and learn their job. They would become experts on the issues that would come before their committees, establish deep connections and relationships with key stakeholders, and have tremendous institutional memory and knowledge. Close bipartisan working relationships were formed during those times, but sadly, most of this has been lost in the last 20 years. It also used to be common for committees to meet to discuss current issues and possible solutions, not just gather when bills were before them to quickly vote them out to the floor. Legislators didn't always fix things on the floor. They fixed them in committee. It is my hope that those of you who return in January choose to really deliberately deliberate and use the knowledge base of your colleagues from both sides of the aisle. My other hope is that the legislature sees back the power it too easily handed over to the executive branch. For years, governors, all of them, regardless of party, would ask for rolled-up budgets. Just appropriate by category. We'll hand it over to our department heads. They know how to spend the money better than we do. And every time that was asked from a governor, the legislature responded, both in the House and the Senate, with a clear no. Every year, half the budget bills would originate in the House and the other half in the Senate. The following year, the halves would switch. I bring this up because that's not what's happened for many of you who will be returning next term. After that, the appropriations process would begin on each separate budget. And each separate budget would be voted on separately. If you didn't support the transportation budget, but you loved the corrections, you had the opportunity to vote on each. Not just two omnibus rolled-up budget bills, where we were handing unprecedented discretion to the executive office. For the last 4 years, I've watched in horror as we willingly gave away our legislative power to the governor. Again, it is my hope that my colleagues returning and serving next year reclaim their power of appropriations, refuse to pass rolled-up budgets, and tackle each budget on its own. Appropriations is the duty vested in the legislative branch, not the executive branch. And finally, I hope our next legislature strikes a fair balance with regard to passing bills. Each legislator here represents almost 90,000 citizens, and each representative should have the same rights as every other one, regardless of party. But last session, the 2011-12 one, of the 490 House-originated public acts signed by the governor, only 9.5% were sponsored by Democrats. A far cry from the over 18% sponsored by the minority party under Democratic control the previous 2 sessions. If the public is to have faith in us, in their government, we need to do better to be fair to each other and to the voters who sent us here. We third-termers have been through an awful lot together. Elected in 2008, as the world economy was crashing down around us, we survived late-night sessions that would stretch into early mornings for no apparent reason. A state government on the verge of shutdown because the leadership of the House, the Senate, and the governor's office could not compromise for the life of them. And we were here in this chamber on a rare Friday session, Friday, December 18th, 2009, when House Speaker Andy Dillon asked us to take our seats around 8 p.m. He then shocked us with the news that our colleague, Representative Mike Simpson, had died. We were silent. We quietly tried to console Mike's front row seatmates. And I'll never forget the moment the sergeant removed Mike's belongings from his desk. And moments later, we stood and watched as 4 sergeants covered his desk with a black cloth and placed an arrangement of lilies, roses, and carnations on top. The flag at the state capitol was lowered to half-staff. Almost 10 months to the day later, on Sunday, October 17th, 2010, we lost Representative Bob Jones, the former mayor of Kalamazoo and my good friend. In late December of that same year, we lost Kate Ebley. And at the end of January 2011, we mourned with our friend, Representative Daley, over the loss of his son. It is for Thomas that I have a Gift of Life license plate on my car. I mention these things for a reason. To the outside world, we are a self-centered, dysfunctional group of politicians beholding to special interests. But we on the inside, in here, we know we are family. And we are here, all of us, to make Michigan better. We may disagree precisely on how to do that, and sometimes quite loudly. But we try. And it has been my sincere pleasure to serve with every one of you. I will miss you all dearly.